timing is the key to hitting a high-level one-handed backhand, and poor timing is really the thing that prevents players from improving their backhand. If you lack power on your backhand, that's timing. If you hit with power but you make too many errors, that's timing. If you don't have consistency, it comes down to timing. If you can't adjust the amount of spin that you've got on your one-hander, it all comes down to timing. And common things that coaches are correcting against, like not extending through the ball and different things like that, are all products of poor timing. So timing is very important, and that is what we're going to be working on in this video. I'm going to be talking about some kind of issues that you probably need to fix in terms of the technique, and maybe some adjustments that you might need to make. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about the big things that are going to be limiting you and preventing you from having good timing, and how you can overcome those as well to really develop a high-level one-handed backhand. So the first problem that most players have got to overcome when it comes to poor timing on the one-hander is preparation. Now, early preparation and setting up in the right position is important on every shot, but for the single-handed backhand, it becomes even more important because we can't compensate with our wrist in the same way. We don't have a left hand to compensate with. You have to have good timing in order to hit a good one-hander, and in order to have good timing, you have to be prepared and set up in the right position. Now, I've talked a lot about preparation, and I'll place a link to a video down in the description that's going to go into a lot more detail. But here, just very quickly, some of the keys to preparation are going to be the footwork. You've got to make sure that you're split stepping on every single shot, or you should be working on split stepping on every single shot. You then need to make sure that you've got a good unit turn, so that as soon as you recognize where the ball's going, you're starting to get that upper body unit turn. Exactly what it looks like we'll discuss in a moment, because there are things that you might need to change the way that you think about, but you've got to get the upper body rotated because we're going to be using that as part of our stroke. You then need to have efficient pivot steps. So when the ball's wider, you're going to need a drop step so then you can cover more ground. When the ball's a little bit closer, you're going to need good shuffle steps so that you can set up in the right position. And for a lot of players, it's a case of working on those, developing enough repetitions of the footwork to really speed up the preparation, because unless you are in the right position, you will not hit a good quality one-handed backhand. So again, there'll be a link in the description to a video that's going to help you in more detail. The second part of the preparation is a little bit trickier. That normally comes down to the visual recognition, because what I've just talked about there is doing a nice early unit turn using the pivot step. Well, until you recognize where the ball's going, you can't do that. And most players' visual systems simply do not work well enough to allow them to prepare fast enough. If you're not starting your unit turn until the ball's crossing over the net or even bouncing on your side of the court, this is you. To help you, I've created a free Tennis Vision starter program. It's going to show you a few different drills that you can start to work on to train your visual system, and it's going to be really helpful, because I'm going to say it again, preparation is one of the biggest problems for most players' timing. You've got to fix that first, because if you don't prepare in time, everything else goes wrong after that. Now let's look at some biomechanics and some technical adjustments that you might need to make. And one of the challenges here is, if you've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, you potentially think about things in a certain way, because everyone breaks down Federer's backhand. They talk about his unit turn and then the swing path and all the things that he does. And obviously Federer had an amazing one-handed backhand, but the reality is that he's the greatest player to ever play with a one-handed backhand. There's the likelihood that your body doesn't function quite in the same way that his does, because I know mine doesn't, and that means that you might have to make slight modifications. But also, when you watch Federer play, he doesn't just use one backhand technique. He adjusts things. So sometimes his take back will be higher, sometimes it'll be lower, sometimes he's going to be flattening the ball out and hitting through it, sometimes the ball's going to be higher, he's going to be coming through there. When the ball's deep, he's not going to be doing this full unit turn, he's just going to step in and just flick his wrist without a full unit turn. So this doesn't normally get talked about within coaching. It's normally, okay, turn, take the racket back to here, do this, do this. But that doesn't reflect the difficulties of tennis, and this is why the timing piece is so challenging, because it's about your ability to make the necessary adjustments. So what I want to do here is kind of help you to understand the biomechanics a little bit, talk about which parts are important, which parts are less important. Now, generally, we're going to need that good unit turn. We do want to get our upper body more side on, because we're going to be driving through the hip and then our torsos are going to be involved. So we need the pelvis pointing roughly in that direction, the upper body pointing roughly in that direction, because then we can use both of those as part of our kinetic chain and our swing. But here's where you've got to be careful. A lot of coaches talk about, okay, to get more power, you need to rotate further. You need to have, you know, almost your back pointing down towards that other end of the court. And that's fantastic if you're Dominic Thiem or Roger Federer or someone with amazing flexibility and amazing timing. But for a lot of players, the vast majority of players, that's too much. If I'm trying to meet the ball there, it's way easier to time this than it is to time this. Now, if I can do that, I can get more power, but the timing's harder. So that might not be appropriate. So you might not want to rotate all the way around. You might just want to rotate to the side, or potentially you might even just want to rotate less than that and just hit through the ball. The way that you do your racket drop is also going to be important. Again, if we're breaking down the pros, we take the unit turn, we take the racket back a little bit higher. It varies slightly, but somewhere up there so we can create leverage. We then, as we drive through our back hip, we then drop the racket down into a slot position, often with the strings facing back there, and then we start to pull with our lats and hit through the ball. And yes, that allows you to hit with more power, but that is also something that requires a lot more timing. So doing a racket drop into there requires way more timing than just doing a racket drop there, keeping the racket on your side of the body and then hitting through the ball. And again, where you prepare and take your racket is also going to be important. We're taking the racket up high because that allows us to use gravity to start the kinetic energy in the racket so that we can generate more racket head speed. But that also increases the challenges in terms of timing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing your unit turn, taking the racket back to there and hitting through the ball. You can hit a powerful shot, you can adjust your spin, you can place it just by doing that. And I would argue that a lot of players will get way better results just by turning and doing this than trying to copy the pros and use a technique that's way beyond their capabilities in terms of timing. But you don't even need to go that far. You could just do a partial turn, get the racket behind the ball, set up in the right position, and then just block through. Now, that isn't going to allow you to take a ball that's floating towards you and crush it for winners. But if you've got an opponent that's hitting at you with a little bit of pace, you can definitely block the ball back and cause your opponent a lot of problems. So when you're thinking about your timing and adjusting your technique, we've got the theoretically optimal in terms of what the pros do, but then we've got what you might need to do in reality to actually improve the quality of stroke from where it is now. And often that means sorting the preparation out, making sure that you set up in time, and then simplifying a little bit to make the timing easier. And then of course, obviously focusing on that contact point to aid in the consistency. Now that you understand the biomechanics a little bit and how you can start to make adjustments to be more effective in terms of your timing, let's talk about what you need to do if you really want to develop a high-level one-handed backhand, if you really want to improve the quality of your timing, because there are certain hurdles that you need to overcome, and we've talked about one of them a little bit already. That's the visual side of things. Everything in tennis is eye to hand and eye to foot coordination, and that starts with the vision. You need to be able to read where the ball's going quickly. If you can't quickly read where the ball's going, you're never going to be able to prepare early enough to play high level tennis. You'll get to a point when the ball's traveling too quickly and you don't have time to prepare for your shot. Then we've got your ability to accurately predict how far the ball is away, how fast it's traveling, so that you can start your swing at the right time. And if you don't have a visual system that does that at a high enough level, it's going to prevent you from ever having good timing. And I mean ever. Like if a coach drops it in front of you, you'll be able to time it because the ball's already out in front of me. I don't have to solve the problem of the ball going that way. If the coach feeds it into the same spot, you'll be able to make it work some of the time because you can compensate, you know where it's going. But when you play points, when you play matches, it's too much for you to overcome and you'll never have good timing. And potentially you've already experienced this for yourself already because your visual system simply doesn't function at a high enough level. I know it sounds harsh, but it's the reality. That's why everyone isn't a professional tennis player. The good news though is vision is very trainable. And I've already mentioned a free Tennis Vision Starter program that I've created for you to help you. I make it so that you can start to work on your visual system. It's going to start to improve some of these areas. but you might need to do a little bit more if you really want to develop high level timing, because you're also going to have to address the coordination side of things as well. It's all about making the adjustments. If I'm swinging the balls at a nice comfortable height, I can just swing through it. If the ball's lower, I need to adjust the swing path and make adjustments in terms of what I'm doing with my wrists and with my arms, with my shoulders, to make that contact work well. If the ball's higher, again, it's a different swing path. This requires a tremendous amount of coordination. Sometimes it takes a bad bounce and I have to adjust on the fly. You need this eye to hand, eye to foot coordination to be able to do all this stuff. And again, most people playing tennis at the moment don't have the coordination to play tennis in the way that they've got in their mind. We watch the pros, we listen to the coaches, it sounds like it's easy, but then you step out on court and it doesn't work quite like that, because your coordination isn't good enough to play past a certain point. And it's relative. If you want to play 3-0 tennis, the visual and coordination requirements are very low. If you want to play 3-5 tennis, they're a little bit higher. 4-0 tennis, we're starting to get up there. The higher you want to go in tennis, the better your eye to hand and eye to foot coordination needs to be. And if you've got 4-0 eye to hand and eye to foot coordination, you will never, ever, ever play 4-5 tennis. It doesn't work that way. You have to address the underlying problem. The good news is it is very possible to do using brain-based training. So there's the free vision program, but then I've also created a web class that's going to teach you all about how you can use this stuff, how you can train your vision, get faster reflexes, better ball tracking, better ability to predict where the ball's going, how you can improve your coordination so you can improve your technique and shot control, and also so how you can improve your focus and concentration, because the mental side of things is huge in terms of good quality practice and performing well in matches. So if that's interesting, I'll place a link up there. I'll place a link down in the description to this class so that you can check it out if you would like to learn more about this. Otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed the video. Fix preparation, work on footwork, be lighter on your toes, try and simplify your stroke relative to your current ability level rather than trying to replicate what the best players on the planet do, and that's going to take you a long, long way. Okay, any comments, leave them down below, and I'll catch you next time.